Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to set up a cheap VPN on Azure. This is pretty easy to do, but you've probably seen advertisements for something like NordVPN. Now, what this service and other services like it do is they encrypt traffic between your device, be it a tablet, a laptop, or a phone, and their server. And the traffic is encrypted from your device to the server, but once it's on their server, it's decrypted and put back out onto the internet. Now, if it's accessing something like a bank website, it's doubly encrypted because the bank has their own encryption, and then it's re-encrypted with more encryption on top of that when you're using the VPN. So even if you're not using a VPN, it's still safe to use those kinds of websites. However, there's a couple of reasons that you might want to use something like a VPN to surf the internet. One reason is for point of presence. Say if I wanted to access content in the United States and I was traveling abroad or living abroad, there's many services that won't let you connect unless you're originating from an IP address that is in the United States, and they'll block you if you're not in that United States. So one way to work around that is to establish a point of presence by way of a VPN. So what you do in that case is you set up a VPN that terminates in the United States and you connect to it from overseas. And then once you're connected, it looks like your traffic is coming from an IP address in the United States, even though you might be living abroad or traveling abroad. And that's one reason that folks might use a VPN. Another one is for things like accessing data when you're out and about. So if you're at a coffee shop or you're at a hotel, you want to access, say, a bank website or your email, and you are doing that over a secure connection, but not everything in that communication is encrypted, such as the IP address of your computer or the IP address of the servers you're connecting to. And this activity can get logged, and it can be used by malicious actors to kind of sniff that traffic if they wanted to try and get into it. Now, what a VPN does is it kind of hides all that. So if you're at a coffee shop or at a hotel, they can't see what you're sending back and forth, the IP addresses and so on that you're connecting to. All they can see is that you're connecting to some single IP online, and all your traffic is going back and forth over that single connection rather than seeing everything else that you connect to. So point of presence and privacy might be a reason to use something like a privacy VPN. So on Azure, these are actually pretty easy to set up. And because you can set these up rather quickly, you can basically have this up and running in a matter of minutes and then configure your device and then have privacy VPNs using Azure. And so I can actually use pretty much any region in the world with Azure and then establish a point of presence. So if I wanted to access, say, content in Australia from the United States, I could put a point of presence in an Australian data center and connect my PC to that Australian data center. And it appears that I'm coming from an IP address in Australia, even though I'm physically located in the United States. So this is one cool thing that you can do with the VPN on Azure. And I've set up the scripts for this. So if you want to install this, you can definitely install it. And then I'm going to show you how to set up the clients for your Windows machine and also for an Android phone. But the process is pretty similar regardless of what device you use, if you're using iOS or Mac too. But in any case, let's go show you how to set this up, and then we'll use our devices to connect to a VPN. So here is the GitHub repo for this project for deploying an OpenVPN instance to Azure. Now this is pretty straightforward. I've automated the process to basically install OpenVPN, configure it, and there's a little web app that allows you to manage it. So this is the repo. It's a fairly popular repo of mine that I've maintained for the last 6 or so years, and I've updated it periodically over the years, just provide some refreshes to it, upgrade some of the technology and so on. But my latest edition is basically putting Let's Encrypt for the Nginx instance rather than using a self-signed certificate, so it doesn't give an error. In any case, this is what it looks like. Most of these files you can pretty much ignore, but the one that is of most interest here, or actually the two, would be this ARM template right here, and this template, this particular shell script, because these are the two that do all the magic. The rest of this is used for basically configuration and for the app. So this is just the ARM template. You know, if you're not familiar with ARM, it's basically just a declaration language that you use for deploying things to Azure. And this one is the one that's going to deploy a virtual machine and then set up all the Azure resources for you that then you can use for your VPN, but it's not complete until you actually install the software, which is what this script does. And it basically just takes some parameters and then installs all the software for you. Now, I'm not going to walk through the particulars of this script, but it does use under the hood OpenVPN and Nginx and shell scripts. So basically those things and the kinds of things that is going to install all work together to basically create an admin site and then also provide the endpoint so you can connect your clients to it once you have all this set up. So it's pretty straightforward. So to deploy this to Azure, of course, you can use command line utilities to deploy the ARM template, but I made it real easy. Just come down here and click deploy to Azure. And this will take you over to the Azure portal. If you haven't logged in, of course, you'll have to log in, but I'm already logged in. So it's basically going to bring me straight to this form right here. And this is where I fill out the form. So I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to call it demo VPN right here and click this. And you can put it in any region. This is where you can get a point of presence going on. So Azure has presences all over the world. So as long as you can deploy to these particular regions, I could go to India, Europe. I could do something in Asia if I wanted to. There's another one in Europe. There's one in Japan, Germany. I think there's even some in Australia up here, Brazil, East Asia. I mean, you have plenty of options here for where you might want to establish a point of presence. So I'm going to go with East US 2. Why not? Now that was pretty close, so I can get a decent performance in any case, and use my name as the admin user, and then the email for Let's Encrypt. I'm going to put in my email address. So this is needed. So when you request the SSL certificate after doing a CSR from Let's Encrypt for Nginx, it needs an email address. And this is the host name for it. So I'm going to call it Blaze Demo VPN. And this will need to be unique right here. And but in any case, it'll check it for you. If it doesn't, you'll get an error. So once you have all this populated, you can just click review and create, and it's going to say by clicking on agree, create. You're agreeing to everything here. I'm gonna click create, and that's going to submit all the resources for deployment. And we'll come back when this is done. It takes about 5 minutes to do. Once it's done, we're just going to connect to the server, download a client, and then connect OpenVPN to it. Okay, the resource is finished. So I'm going to go to the resource group. And to get the URL for this, I'm just going to simply click on the VM. And this is going to give me the host name for the VM. Now, because it's using Let's Encrypt, it should have HTTPS now. And just point it to that URL using HTTPS. The username for the website is admin, and then you use that same password you typed in whenever you created the form. And you should get a website that looks something like this. So simple OpenVPN server. And the way to get a client is just simply type in the name of the client and add. And what that's doing is generating some certificates that are unique to that client. And so you can also add another one. So I'll add one for April, and you can see that is getting 2 different clients. I'm going to download this one right here. And this particular one is going to give me Blaze OpenVPN file. So this is basically the configuration file that I need to import into the client. So if you've never installed OpenVPN, just Google or search for, or you can do just OpenVPN GUI Windows like this, and it should give you community downloads right here, which is the one you want. And then you can download this particular installer right here. Now, once you have that running, you can open it up from your start menu, and you'll see down here on your tool tray already up and running if you haven't loaded it already. Now, this is the client right here. So if you just double click the OpenVPN file after installing it, it's do you want to import this profile? You click yes, and that imports the profile. And once your profile is imported, you're ready to connect. So it's pretty straightforward for adding it on Windows. Now, if you don't have but one profile here, you'll just see a list of options up here that'll say connect. If you have more than one profile, which you can see that I do here, you'll see a sub menu, and you can click connect right here. And that's going to throw up a little pop-up here. And then that's going to establish a VPN connection. So if I do, what is my IP address? IP now, you should see that I'm connected from an Azure IP address. So if I click on this, it should tell you who the owner of this is. It's my ISP is Microsoft. So that's a known address that's associated with Microsoft. So that is the same IP address of my VM right here, 20.12.60.161. So you know that I'm coming out of this virtual machine right here onto the internet. So it looks like I'm coming from Microsoft's data center for all the traffic, even though I'm not in Microsoft's data center. So it's a VPN at this point. So to disconnect, it's pretty straightforward. Just reverse the process. You can go to your VPN, hit disconnect, and now I'm not on that IP address. And if I refresh this, I should get the IP of my ISP. So again, very straightforward for creating and accessing a VPN using Windows. So let me do the exact same process, but instead of using Windows, I'm going to use an Android phone to show you that this will work on a phone just as easy. So to install it, go to the Play Store and type in OpenVPN and download that to your phone. And then you can install it, agree to the terms, and now the app is installed. Now, the next thing we would do is browse to that URL that we did on Windows, just typing that in here. And then from there, you sign in using the same credentials and then download the profile to your phone. Just by clicking on the link on this page here. Now, once that's downloaded, you can just flip back over to the app that we installed. And then the app will then allow me to import the file. So I'm going to click on File and then click on Open Browse. And then there's the file that I just downloaded. Open that guy up and then click OK. And then I'm going to check Connect after import. And then tap Add. And then it's going to say Connection Request, yes. Allow it to connect. And then it's going to ask for permissions if you've done it the first time. Now you don't have to repeat this once you have it installed. Now the VPN is connected. I can just go to what is my IP address. And just to show you that it's the same IP address as what I saw on Windows, I can tap on this and so you can see that's the same IP address we had before. So we saw how easy it was to set up the clients on an Android phone and on a Windows device. So you can do the same thing with TunnelBlick on Mac. That's the name of the piece of software you'd want to download and install, or you can use OpenVPN Connect for iOS, for iPhone, or for iPads as well. So it's really easy to do on those platforms. Now, the cool thing about Azure is if you're just a single user and you're pretty much the only person using this VPN, you can turn off the VM when you're not using it. So if you're in the Azure portal, I'll show you how to do that. And you can also do it on the phone using the Azure app. So I'm here in the Azure portal. To shut down a VM, it's pretty straightforward. Just click stop and that will deallocate the VM and you won't be billed for it. But to do this on the phone is actually a little bit easier. You just use the app that you can install for Azure. So I'll show you how to do that here shortly. Shutting down the VM is easy on that app. Just open up the Azure app. You can download that too and install it and just select virtual machines. You can see that I have 3 here. They're called OpenVPN VM, but pick yours and then hit the stop button. You can see that it's running. Just hit this, tap the stop button and then you say yes. And now it's going to stop the VM. So to start the VM, you just basically reverse the same process like we just saw, but with the VM off, basically all you're paying for is the storage of the disk on the VM. You're not paying for any ingress or egress. Even if the IP address changes, it's not going to impact your particular client because it allows you to have a name associated with whatever IP is associated with your VM. And that's what you've done when you created this. So you don't have to worry about reserving your IP. So you're basically just paying for the storage while you're not using it. But if you're out on the go, you can use the app to start the VM and then connect to it and then shut it down later. Or if you're online, you can just use the Azure portal, or you can start it from your phone and then connect your PC, whatever you might want to do. But starting and stopping the VM just saves you a lot of money. It's really not that expensive a VM. I think total cost of ownership on Azure is about $8 a month, which is probably cheaper than some of those privacy VPNs on a given subscription per month. But if you shut it down, you might only pay maybe $1 or $2 a month for a VPN that is private, that gives you the same impact like for a more costly solution like a privacy VPN on something like NordVPN or something like that. If you like this content, please consider subscribing to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button. You can also like this content by clicking on the thumbs up or share this content with your friends, and also comment in the comment section down below. You can also find me online at www.blaze.net or on Twitter at @TheOneMule. And as always, thanks for watching.